Hey there everybody, it's Nathan Cool with nathancoolphoto.com, and in this tutorial I'm going to show how to balance a motorized gimbal for doing video. This is the first step, as you may know, to doing any type of video, especially for real estate videography, that we have to have the gimbal balanced. Even though we've got 3 motors that are going to help with this, and we can do special walks to also minimize some of the motion, we need to make sure that it's balanced. For instance, right now this entire gimbal is balanced. The motors aren't on and it doesn't move as I move around it. I can put it into position and it will stay put. This is very important to make sure that the motors have the least amount of work on them, and that also, very importantly, that throughout the shoot that you will remain stable and you will remain centered. If you don't have a very well balanced gimbal, all of a sudden somewhere through the shoot you're going to find the camera is constantly being tilted somehow, and you're trying to center it with, for instance, the double tap trigger on the Ronin S, and it just isn't going into place. So I'm going to cover all that on how I do it. Once you do have it balanced the first time, all of these have markings on the various rails. Take little cell phone pictures of that, keep it handy. You'll get used to it and be able to set this up very quickly then for every shoot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in a lot closer so you can see this a little bit better, and I'm going to go through all those steps. Okay, so now we're in a little bit closer. I can start the whole process here. The most important thing obviously is to put on the mount that you get. This one rail, it's going to go into the mount on the gimbal itself. Another important thing here too to bear in mind is that this little part here that will actually mount the camera needs to be adjusted from side to side. It also has a little lever like the other adjustments that we'll be doing, and so that though really depends on how big your camera is. So once we mount the camera in there, if we have it over too far, the camera is going to be hitting the motor, so we want to have that into a comfortable position that when the camera slides in, it's not hitting the motor. So that's one that is really just adjusted for the size of the camera, and then the rest of these will be adjusted for balancing the gimbal itself based on that. You're going to eventually take the lens cap off of the camera because we want to have the way it's going to be used in production, the way that we're going to balance it. But for safety, what I like to do is I like to keep the lens hood on until I at least get it on the gimbal and start balancing it. So what I've got is this rail on here. It's good to also keep it on there. I like to keep my lenses married to a body, so I then keep this married to a body as well, and then I never have to move it. If you don't, there are numbers on that, just like everything else on all these rails. So to get this in there, usually all these are the same. This is a Ronin S gimbal. There's a little catch right here, but so that it doesn't fall back out. But then you just slide this in, and once again, leaving the lens cap on for now, I'll just slide that into place. Now I know approximately where that's going to go, and I'm just going to get it in there for a while. Put the lock lever forward, just hold it in place, and then I can take the lens cap off. So now I feel secure that the camera isn't going to fall off the gimbal. It's going to be fine. In case something happens, I slip, I'm not going to then kill a $1,000 lens here. This happens to be the Leica 0D. Anyway, so I'll take this off here, and of course the Leica lens has like this felt stuff on there I really don't care for, and we'll just remove the lens cap. Okay, now this is in the production state that we'd use for balancing. If you're using monitors, other stuff like that, you need to make sure that everything is plugged in at this point. The balance is very sensitive. So the first thing we're going to do is we want to balance it so that it goes into this tilting direction here, and to do that you can hold on with one hand to this back motor here and then see how well it tilts, and as you can see, it's tilting down. So what I'm going to be doing is then loosening this lever and moving back and forth in this rail. So that's the first step. So I'm just going to unlock it, and I'm then going to move it into position, lock it back again, and then see how that works. Now that looks pretty good there. So I can move it around. It's still, it's kind of bouncing back a little bit, so I can refine that maybe just a tad more. And these are very small motions, so I just move that just a smidge, and then once again I can see how well that works. So that seems to be working fairly well. So I like the balance of that. The next thing though is we're going to be balancing this rail here. So that's where we'll point the camera straight up and then see if it falls, and you can see it's falling without me doing anything. So what we want to do now is balance that. It should be like this, balanced up. So we're going to be moving this rail back and forth. So you loosen it and then you move it a little bit. Once again, these would be small movements if it's moving just a little bit, and of course large movements moving a lot. And these are metal rails in here, and sometimes they can be hard, so you kind of got to hold on to them. So you move it a little bit. Let me get that in there, and you'll see the struggle on doing this too. So you want to have numbers on it the first time. Tighten it up and then see how it works. Make sure that it's tight. Hold on to the back motor while you're doing these tilt ones, because otherwise it's going to go all over the place, and then see if it falls forward. It's still falling forward, so that means I have to go more. I know exactly where it's supposed to be, but I'm just doing this as an example. So anyways, loosen that up again, put that to where you think it should be, move it some more, we'll move it right about there, tighten that back up, hold on to that back motor and see if it falls. And of course it doesn't fall. So now I can move this around and it's not tilting. So I'm very happy with that. So the axis here that we just did, which was for here as it's tilting up and down, and of course then as it's tilting right here in this plate, we know that that has been now balanced. Now the tricky part is to go back and forth, and I'm holding on to this back motor here. If I let loose of that, then we're going to see the camera tilts. So the same thing with the other axes is that it has a rail, and in this case we want to move it back and forth. Since it's leaning this way, that means that we need to move the rail this way. So I'm just going to bring it around here so I can do that. Loosen that up a little bit, move it a little bit. That's all that I did there. You can see I moved it a little bit, and we'll see how much it tilts. It's still tilting. And of course, this would be facing me. I'm facing it toward the camera so you can kind of get an idea what's going on. Once again, you would loosen that and then move it a little bit more. You can try to not tighten it and see what happens, but I'm just so careful about it. I like to tighten it each time. So we'll do it again. I'm just going to do it here while it's facing me so I can see what I'm doing, get it to the settings I kind of know where it should be, and then see if it tilts back and forth. And it doesn't. Seems to be looking pretty good. Turn around here so you can see that as well, and you can see that it's tilting a little bit maybe to this way toward me, so that means that I went too far this way. So let me just put that back just a smidge, and it's not very much. These are small little incremental changes. That looks pretty good. Let me turn it around here so that you can see it and see if that tilts, and that looks pretty good. So now I can move this around really good. Now, this would be the typical area where most new videographers would stop, but it's not the end of it. There's a big major one, and especially if you notice, if this is all that you did, you're going to get out in the field, and after you start videoing for a while, all of a sudden everything's tilting. Something's not quite right, and that's because of this last one. So what you do is face the camera forward like this to test it, and you want to tilt the camera in a 45-degree angle this way and a 45-degree angle that way. So I'm going to hold on to this and go that direction. You can see the camera swinging. Boom, it's way off. That's the bottom rail here, and it's got this adjustment, and of course it has its numbers. So what I'm going to do is once again just move it a little bit, see if the swing improves and in that certain direction. So yeah, it's slowed down the swing, still swinging that direction. I'm going to take it all the way over to the other side, see what happens, and you'll see that it'll swing the opposite way. So instead of swinging to the left, it was swinging to the right. So let's bring this around here. We know we went too far. We'll start backing it off. Once again, this is a one-time thing. You get these numbers down, it'll make it very quick next time you set it up. So now we tilt it that way. And look at that, it's holding in place. That looks like the good number. We'll test it now going the other direction, which is that way. Okay, so now this is a balanced gimbal, but there's still one more step that I like to do. And that's, I'm going to turn the, and I'll turn it this way so you can get a pretty good idea of what's going to happen here. I'll throw it off here so you can kind of see. All right, I'm going to turn on the gimbal. And of course with the Ronin, you have to turn on the battery first, which is down here. And then there's a power button that's up here. Let me get that turned on. And then hear that. Now the camera will center. Boom. Now that looks good, but what I like to do now is let it warm up a little bit. Turn on the camera, and you should then be able to see on the back screen display, I'll turn that on, you see a virtual horizon, and if you look very closely, the virtual horizon will be off. What we want to do is leave that virtual horizon on for a little bit, the camera on for a little bit, until that virtual horizon starts evening out. We want to be able to have it so that when we double tap our trigger and that the Ronin centers itself, that virtual horizon is green all the way across. So that's an important thing to do. It's sometimes these motors need a little bit more time to kind of just adjust themselves. If you give it just a second, then that virtual horizon will start settling itself in. Those are basically all the steps though to doing it. If something went wrong, shut it all off. Just start from the beginning. Once again, take pictures of everything, of all these different points, all these axes. Sometimes too, you can get this settled into a case or a backpack with some of these at least set, but no matter what, every time before you start doing video, make sure that it is balanced. You're going to get yourself very close with the numbers on here, but if you don't have it perfectly balanced, you're just going to make your life a lot harder while you're on site shooting video. Well, I hope this video was useful for you and that you can use some of this to help set up your gimbal as well. If you did like this video, you want to see more on videography and photography, especially when it comes to real estate, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. It won't cost anything, and as soon as one of these videos is posted, you'll be the first to know. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, take care, be safe, and get out there and shoot something.